But yeah, I mean, it's just, that's Trisha. Hey there. I thought I'd pop on so that we could give a little bit of topical commentary to a couple things that have gone on in the past couple of days that I find interesting. So, about a week ago, we did an episode of PR Pro Bono where we talked about some of the controversy around Tana Mojo. A lot of her fans and viewers have been criticizing her for essentially acting like a brat on her MTV reality show, for not taking her health seriously and actually making a mockery of the importance of her physical health, and essentially setting a bad example for her viewers. So without telling the whole story all over again, just a couple of bullet points. Tana Mojo has for a long time been dealing with a very nasty cough, one that she has feared was tuberculosis, lung cancer. There were some very serious fears around what she was dealing with. Her MTV show set up a doctor's appointment where the doctor determined that she had asthma. And for the remainder of that episode, she and her friends were just joking and laughing it off and seemingly not taking any of this seriously. And it seemed the only person in her life that took this or anything seriously was her manager, Jordan. So in my most recent video about this, I talked about the image that Tana is portraying, or that MTV is portraying of Tana. Regardless of who is responsible for this image, she is coming across looking very irresponsible and ungrateful for the resources she has at her disposal. I believe and have believed that MTV is largely responsible for this bratty and irresponsible and immature image, or at least the disconnect between our normal bratty, irresponsible Tana and the Tana that we're seeing on MTV No Filter. So Tana just released a video which she briefly described as an apology, but I took more as kind of an explanation and giving more context around this whole situation. She talked a good bit about her mental health and what she was dealing with around the time that this episode was filmed, but also went into her mental health journey since that episode and kind of where she is today. This is a super quick reminder to like and subscribe if that's something you want to do. If that's not something you want to do, I'm sorry for the interruption. I'll shut up and start talking now. Tana expressed to us that around the time this episode was being filmed, she was dealing with an intense amount of depression, and that because of that depression, she was self-medicating and relying so heavily on substances to the point that her judgment was further clouded. And then on top of that, she sort of broke down for us how MTV edits her to shine her in a more dramatic light that, quite frankly, makes for better ratings. And all of this sort of created a shitstorm that just made Tana look really, really bad and offended a lot of her fans and viewers, rightfully so. I suspect that some people, a lot of people maybe, are going to criticize this apology explanation video and say that she was making excuses, but I do want to clearly state the difference I see between an excuse and an explanation. Now, in this video, Tana does fully own up to the weight of her words, the weight of her impact, and how negatively she could be impacting her fans.
I got myself into this mess and feeling this way, and the only person that can get me out of it is me.
She recognized how bad this looks not only on its own, but in light of the situation we're in right now, where the need to take physical health seriously is more important than probably we've ever known in our lifetime. So I do believe Tana when she says that a lot of the things she said in her TV show were really kind of jokes taken out of context, things that she was saying with her friends sarcastically. She has said on several occasions that MTV will take 80 hours of footage and boil that down to 20 minutes, pulling out only the pieces that are going to up their ratings. She told us that two of her best friends, Ashley and Trevor, who were in this episode, they too have asthma, and they were coaching her through how to manage this sickness. Her friend Mari even pointed out that this scene that we see where they're all talking by the fire pit and joking around, that they'd actually been filming for 3 hours and really talking very seriously about Tana's health and how she was feeling overall. And what MTV extracted from those 3 hours were about 3 minutes of them joking and being sarcastic and trying to make light of the situation.
Filming people for 80 hours and then turning that 80 hours of footage into a 30-minute episode. MTV, who is obviously putting the money into doing all of this, wants to make it the most dramatic, interesting 30 minutes they possibly can. So what are they going to take from that 80 hours of footage? The craziest parts.
Which I believe. If we think about the way YouTubers portray their lives on their channels with clickbait, with fake and dramatized plot lines, scripts that look like natural conversation. Think about how these 22-year-old YouTubers are able to attract so much attention with tactics like that. And that doesn't hold a candle to what MTV is able to do with a reality TV show. They've been at this for almost 30 years, if we're going back to the first episode of season 1 of The Real World. They have the best writers, the best editors, the best production crews, a ton of money and resources backing whatever project they have, which right now is Tana and her image. I think to watch Tana's TV show and to really extract our opinion of her from what we see on that show versus what we see on YouTube or elsewhere, I think that we are giving too much credit to Tana and not enough credit to MTV for how she comes across.
If I wanted this show to be edited the way that I edit my YouTube videos or the way that I would edit it, I wouldn't be doing this show with MTV. That's the point. I let them come film me. They edit it how they edit their fucking reality shows and shit.
And Tana really painted a picture of this for us in her apology video, not only talking about how she and her friends were dealing with her asthma diagnosis, but also in the way the show was edited to show conversations between her and Jordan to look like they occurred between her and the doctor. And she was very upset over how rude she appeared to be towards the doctor in the show, which, as she's told us, is not at all reflective of how she was with this doctor or with any doctor or any service professional ever. So this was clearly something very, very important to her. And if we are to believe nothing else, I do believe that this really did hit home for Tana and really show her and us what editing can do to make a person look like such a departure from who they actually are, whether in real life or on camera on their own terms. And this is not the image Tana ever wanted to portray, and she has said this is not what she would look like if she were creating her own content for YouTube, but at the same time recognize that she made this bed and she's gonna lie in it, that this is MTV's content to create, and she has hopes that as the season progresses, they will shine her in a better light. She briefly alluded to kind of a story arc type of structure to this, and how at the height of the season it really is her looking her worst, and we are expecting to see her look better and better as the season progresses, though I'm not sure how many people are going to want to watch this show after that episode. We'll see. She did tell us that when she talked to MTV about the show and what she wanted it to be about, she said that she wanted the focus to be largely on mental health, on her mental health journey.
As long as this has a greater good and we can make art out of this pain and this ugliness, I'm okay with it. And it's like, now that it's out and I'm in this good place now and I'm watching it, I'm just so angry at like what that is, I guess.
So around the time that this episode was filmed, the biggest issue in Tana's life was the depression she was dealing with. And she expressed to us that she was caring more for her loved ones than she did about herself, that she was smoking too much, and that she was relying very heavily on prescription pills.
I was doing so many things that would have killed me if I didn't stop. I got to a point where I didn't care about like living at all.
She told us that she did take time around this episode to move into an apartment where she could be a little more alone, and focus on getting sober, cleaning up her body and her mind to get herself in a much better place where she says she is. She says she feels the best she's ever felt, and that she's ready to be a role model, and she's ready to do good with her platform and do things to change the world for the better, especially considering the crisis we are all dealing with right now.
And I finally feel like I'm at a place to be like held accountable for my actions, responsible as on time with everything, like because I want to be alive.
And we've seen a good bit of this. If you've been on Twitter at all, you've probably seen Tana cash apping her fans and followers money to help get them through this crisis, particularly those fans that have expressed some sort of really difficult situation they're in. And I do find it admirable that Tana didn't mention that at all in this video. That's just something that I'm highlighting as I've seen it all over Twitter the past week or so. She has donated to various charities that are very near and dear to her heart that aid in this crisis, and encouraged her viewers to donate if they can, but to at the very least do their individual part in social distancing and keeping themselves and the world as safe as possible.
Like I want to show everyone who I've become and encourage them that they can like do that too. And I want to use my platform from this point on, like realizing how many people will just watch me like do nothing or watch something like these MTV episodes that like aren't helping the world in any way. I need to do things with this platform and this voice and this many people listening, this many eyes watching, even if they hate me. Like if I can make the world a better place, like that is now what I should be trying to do, because I'm in the place to like finally do that.
And so what do I think of all this? First of all, I don't think that a YouTuber's image, especially if they want to keep their image at all focused on good intentions, I don't think that that goes hand in hand with the drama that an MTV reality show calls for. I don't think sobriety goes hand in hand with that sort of drama that MTV reality shows call for. I don't know that anything very good or wholesome does. I mean, just look at what happened at the very end of Jersey Shore when you had people getting married and settling down to have children, and in particular one cast member getting sober, how things just fizzle out in that sort of setting, and is just not interesting for their audience. And when I first saw that Tana was going to have her own MTV show, this was my primary concern, and we're really kind of seeing that start to materialize. So I do think that Tana is going to have to close the chapter on this MTV show as soon as she can. But I do fully support her in her efforts to do good with her platform moving forward. I don't think we take seriously enough when a YouTuber is honest and open with us about their struggles with substances. Of course, if you've watched any of my videos, you know how important this topic is to me. But when a YouTuber admits to addiction of any sort or reliance on a substance of any sort and a desire to get clean from those substances, that becomes the most important thing in their lives. And that becomes something that we should support to no end, no matter who it is. I could make a whole video around how people are treating Jaclyn Hill's situation right now, which I don't necessarily have any positive feelings towards Jaclyn Hill. I just know that she has recently talked about her reliance on alcohol, and I've seen some drama channels trying to hold her to standards that we should not hold people to while they are trying to get clean and sober. So that's all I'll say about Jaclyn Hill. We're talking about Tana here. But I very much appreciated her opening up about that. That does give us a lot of context. I do know that for myself, when I was really in it in my own addiction, I was given a diagnosis of pancreatitis at one point, and I didn't care. Not only because I was already in a fog, but because I was using a substance whose sole purpose was to keep me from feeling the fears and worries and pain of my everyday life. So if my goal was to not worry and think about those things, and I was on a substance that helped me to not worry and think about those things, of course I'm going to seem pretty flippant about that diagnosis. And I was. And I sort of see Tana's asthma diagnosis, which turned out to be a prolonged or recurring sinus infection. I see this as a similar situation. Of course, she was a little more worried that it could be something more serious. And then when she found out that this could be something a little more manageable, she worried a lot less. Regardless, she is taking control of her health, physically as well as mentally. I don't think she owed it to us to make this effort to become a role model of sorts. It's not what we expect from Tana, so it's not something that we necessarily want from Tana, but it's refreshing for me. Some people have asked me why I don't hold Tana to the same standards I do to other YouTubers. And let's just be real, we're talking about primarily Gabbie Hanna here. She is what a lot of my videos were focused on in the beginning of my time here on YouTube, and people ask me, why don't you hold Tana to the same standards? And I said, because Tana was never the person who said she wanted to be anybody's role model. Tana never expressed a desire to be good.
I am very much the type of person where now when I receive a lot of criticism online, I'm not one to be like, oh my god, like people just hate me, like I'm just so hated, like.
And I'm so sick of being that person to everybody all the time, and then hearing the shit come back to me that comes back to me.
I got myself into this mess and feeling this way, and the only person that can get me out of it is me.
And this is just a perfect example of you can't do anything on the internet without people telling you you're a bad person.
So happy and so healthy that you're seeing something that makes you think otherwise, or makes you think I don't care about you like I care about you guys and always have and always will more than anything on this planet.
No matter what, people will poke holes and people will find a reason to hate you.
And now that she has, I am going to keep a closer eye on her behavior, and I'm probably going to be more critical. Because I like her any less? Absolutely not. Quite the opposite. I like her a lot, and now that she's said this, I'm going to expect more from her. And what I do appreciate is that in this video, she makes it very clear that she does not want to be that YouTuber that makes herself out to be a victim when she is in the middle of a scandal. So I have a lot of respect for the girl for that. And I'm excited to see what she does with her platform. And I'm excited to see this MTV show go away. Hopefully it does. I just don't think that it's doing anybody any good right now. So moving on, let's talk about Trisha Paytas for a couple minutes. I did upload a couple videos either last week or the week before where we talked about Trisha Paytas and all the scandals surrounding her, Dissociated, the DID community, and Anthony Padilla. And that situation got so out of hand that I said to you guys, I'm done with Trisha Paytas. I'm done supporting her, and I don't want to pay attention to this situation anymore. And I still feel that way. However, as I've been working on this series, A History of Scandals and Controversies, where I've talked about Gabbie Hanna, and now here more recently I've talked about James Charles, I've had a lot of my viewers ask me to please do one of these on Trisha, with somebody making a really good point that we should get a chance to look into the scandals and controversies of Trisha Paytas over time without having to go through Trisha's content to find that. And I think that's a good point, and I do think that that is something I want to tackle, although that sounds like a behemoth of a task, considering not only the frequency of Trisha's scandals, but how long she's been on the platform. So I do plan on creating a history of Trisha's scandals, but I do think that it is going to have to be broken up into parts, probably 3 or so, and really only focusing on her biggest scandals. So that said, I saw something that popped up a couple of days ago that I thought was funny and interesting and just I don't know. I found it interesting, but I don't think that it's a big enough deal to land on a series like that focused on Trisha's scandals that are kind of leading to her downfall right now. But I want to talk about Trisha's recent involvement with the H3 podcast. Now, I more or less like the H3 podcast. I'm not a fan. I understand that a lot of people don't like Ethan, don't like his content, don't like H3 or the H3 podcast, and I get that. I understand. But I found it interesting. We know that I think it was sometime last year, Trisha and Ethan Klein really got into it after Ethan posted a video, I think to the H3 channel, about Instagram versus reality, in which he kind of picked apart these girls' pictures, including Trisha's, including Tana's, and saying like, hey, look, here she goes from a monster to WWE wrestler, or here she goes from a mermaid to a manatee. And Trisha, I think very rightfully so, was upset with Ethan for body shaming these women, including herself. As much as we don't like Trisha, as much as we are upset with her, she's always stood for body positivity and not shaming women or people for their bodies. So all of that happened, and I guess over the past couple of months, they sort of started to bury the hatchet by bringing Trisha on the podcast, and over a couple of episodes, started to get into what H3 podcast is trying to do as an ongoing series, which is The Bachelor or The Bachelorette on their podcast. So what they've essentially done, they did this in the past with their employee Ian the intern, where they collect submissions, I believe video submissions, from people who want to date whoever is their featured bachelor or bachelorette. And then they will go through the process of eliminating contestants and hoping to find love. And I keep saying this in a hypothetical way because it's never quite panned out the way H3 projected. In the case of Ian, he ended up speaking in DMs with one of the contestants, and they had a relationship that took off pretty quickly, and they've been together ever since, and it's been a very happy story. But ultimately, they did not go through the proper channels that were laid out by Ethan and Hila Klein, which ended up squashing that series, or that section of that series for them. So cut to, within the past month or so, they decided to find Trisha Paytas a boyfriend. So they brought Trisha on. Trisha seemed pretty excited to find somebody on their podcast. They had a bunch of guys and a girl submit their kind of dating profile videos, or why I want to date Trisha, why I would be a good match for Trisha types of videos. And they whittled those down to a handful of contestants that they would move on to the next phase, where I don't know if they were planning to bring these guys in to meet Trisha, but somehow they were going to whittle these contestants down to one true love for Trisha that they would send on a cruise together and hope for lifelong love. That was the plan. They did talk briefly in one of these recent episodes about Trisha's attraction to Hila's brother Moses. And if I'm not mistaken, they did talk about how the show had gone down before with Ian and how they didn't want to see that happen again. They had Trisha promise not to break any of the rules. They said, hey, you can DM these guys after we finish the series if it doesn't work out with the winner of the show, but the show must go on, so do not hook up with these guys before the show concludes or anything like that, including Hila's brother Moses. So moving to present day, I believe their podcast has been on hiatus somewhat during this crisis. H3 Productions is a legitimate company with several employees, and they just simply can't have their employees going into the office right now. It just isn't safe. So the show is on hiatus. However, Ethan and Hila did apparently upload an episode, a podcast from their home a couple days ago. And at the end of that podcast, they really just went in on Trisha because they started to see photos of Trisha with Moses on Twitter. Instagram? I think it was Twitter. And the way they explained it to us was that Ethan and Hila did talk to Moses about Trisha's attraction to Moses. Moses said that he was going to talk to her, maybe hang out with her to kind of throw off the show, as kind of a jab at them. Something they didn't really take all that seriously. However, these photos, Instagram, I think it was Twitter, surfaced. And it appears that Trisha and Moses may be spending this quarantine time together. They pieced together a few bits of evidence. Trisha has posted photos where there is apparently a man's arm across her that they think could be Moses. They found they saw another photo that Trisha posted, which was a quarantine date night where they saw some of Moses's artwork on the dinner table.
I know my brother, and I immediately spotted his stickers on the table. He does artwork with water, and he has stickers that he always will give people. And I have those stickers myself, and I know those stickers when I see it.
And in addition, Trisha has been tweeting in Hebrew.
So then just yesterday she tweets in Hebrew. What does it say, Hila?
Ahuva.
Ahuva.
It either means my love but you would say it to me because it's like addressing a female. So she either meant to write it for my brother and she made a mistake on gender, or...
She definitely meant it for your brother.
I should note that Moses and Hila are Israeli. So Trisha's been tweeting in Hebrew and alluding to whoever this new partner is of hers.
This happened around the same time, the same day. She says, I don't know if I'm in love or just bomb ass dick. So I have to ask you, Hila, at this point.
I feel like
that
one was like that one especially. I think she's doing it to me on purpose.
So nobody knows quite for sure whether or not Trisha is fully in a relationship at this point, whether or not this person is truly Moses, Hila Klein's brother, or if they are just dropping breadcrumbs everywhere to troll Ethan and Hila. I think for sure Moses and Trisha are hanging out and hooking up and all that jazz. At first I didn't think that they would be posting these pictures and tweets as a means of getting to Ethan and Hila.
No, I even wonder if you put it there on purpose.
That's what I was wondering right now too.
But the more I think about it, if they were to have any respect for H3 and what they're doing with this show and this podcast, you'd have to be really, really dense not to be doing that on purpose. And Ethan and Hila are pissed. At one point, they talked about how they came to like Trisha over time, about how Moses shouldn't be ashamed to like Trisha or to date Trisha if that's what he wanted to do.
I think your brother is embarrassed to admit that he actually likes
I don't know
her.
why he's embarrassed if that's the case.
Because you can be like, Moses, why are you embarrassed? Why don't you tell them that we're dating?
Then over the course of this segment, they really just laid into the both of them for doing this. So here are just some of the things that Ethan has said in response to this.
Do you understand, Moses, that the girl you're apparently dating has sent me, personally me, tweeted at me pictures of her vagina?
Right.
Do you understand what you're doing?
I think that's a problem.
Do you even understand? She, the girl that you're apparently dating, which you think is funny, wanted to have a throuple with your sister and your brother-in-law.
True.
Do you understand what you're doing?
That's a problem if I ever saw one.
She had double chlamydia, Moses, at one point. Just saying.
And I get it. They planned several episodes dedicated to this series that was going to bring in probably a good bit of revenue. And they'd already laid so much work into this already on the back end. And now when the show picks back up, they're going to have to come up with something new to talk about. They're going to have to come up with some different content than this project they've already been working so hard on. But at the same time, that's assuming that this quarantine relationship that Trisha is in is going to last outside of quarantine, whenever that ends. So if history is any indication, I'm guessing probably not, but who knows. But I found that to be interesting, kind of funny, kind of irritating. I get why Ethan and Hila are pissed. At the same time, I can only imagine what it's like to be holed up in quarantine with somebody new that you're attracted to, and I'm sure there are a lot of people out there that are experiencing that right now, and I'm very interested. I actually am thinking I might want to do a video about that, so if you are somebody who's in a situation like that, please, please, please drop some comments down below. But yeah, I mean, it's just, that's Trisha. It's like, what else can you say or do? And I'm really only talking about that here because it's not something to me that's incredibly infuriating or offensive. but I thought, just wow. So we'll see how that pans out. We'll see how things pan out for Tana. What do you guys think about her apology? I have not seen any drama channels cover it yet, so I really have no idea what the collective response is going to look like. I may be right on the nose with everybody else, or I may say something drastically different from what the masses have to say, and that wouldn't be the first time for me. So let me know what you think. Then what do you think of the idea of a series on Trisha's scandals and controversies, other than the fact that that is going to take a long time? I want to thank you, the one person who's watching this, who's not me. Thank you for coming back. Thank you for watching me. You may notice that I've switched around some prints here. We're probably going to see things change up a little bit more here and there. But let me know what you think of how things are going, making changes to lighting and experimenting there. So it's still a work in progress. This is still a young channel, but I do thank you for coming back and supporting me. And I can't wait to talk to you down in the comments. See you there. Bye.